It's driving time with Fine Time.
Hello, party people. Hello, music people. It's your boy Dre, and I am here with the Kevin. Yeah, I haven't called you the Kevin in a long time. You were the Kevin.
It's been a while, yeah. And I'm excited to be a music people. We periodically talk about music on The Big Deal, but this is the first time that I've got to be a real music people with you.
Yes, you have. I'm glad to be doing this. You came up with this idea. And the title of this episode, I'm full disclosure, everybody, I'm not sure what we're going to call this. Kevin, in my notes, I wrote it Album Exchange Club. I don't know.
Yeah,
we can come up with.
I think that. Well, that embodies what we're doing. I think the idea for this was just, back in the olden days when you and a friend would physically swap albums, which obviously we can't do because we don't have any albums anymore.
Yep.
and the spatial constraints, but so we've each picked two albums for each other to listen to, where I think the premise is that we thought there's a good chance that they would find something to appreciate about that album. But I think and let me know if I'm off base about this. Neither of the albums I picked for you were ones that I was like, oh, this is definitely a shoo-in. This is right up Andre's alley. This is something that I know is going to line up with exactly what he likes, because I didn't.
Yeah, and the ones I picked for you, I felt the same. I was like, I feel very strongly about these, and I do think you will see something in them. Will you like them as much as me? Probably not. I'm definitely not expecting that, or maybe you will. Who knows, right? That would be a great surprise. But yeah, that's also what I'm doing here. But we're probably going to do at least two of these, and we're going to do one album at a time here. I'm going to talk about one album Kevin picked for me. He's going to talk about the one I picked for him, and then we'll probably do another one where we do the other album we pick for each other. But yeah, one at a time basically is how we're going to do this. Don't really know how long we're going to talk about each of these. This could be a very short episode. This could be a long episode. Who knows, right? But I'm down for any. I almost said I'm down for any length. That makes me sound like a slut.
You are down for any length, and everybody knows it.
I mean, come on, really. Everyone knows what I've been slutting up to. But yeah, that's the premise of this episode. So I think we should start with the one for this episode, I should say, that you picked for me. Should I say it or you? Actually, you introduce the album to everybody. Let's get started.
Okay, so the first album I picked for Andre was Anti-Flag's For Blood and Empire. This was released in 2006, and despite being their sixth studio album, was the first one to be released on a major record label, which they took some, this is a punk album, and they definitely took some shit at the time for it being, you're sellouts. Yeah,
of course. Exactly. Yeah, that's always a big deal.
Yeah. And so the band formed in 1988, but For Blood and Empire came out right in the middle of a period when they actually had some commercial success. They had 4 albums that registered on US charts, and all 4 of those fell between 2003 and 2009, and then never again since then. Also, I did just yesterday, while preparing for the show, found out an interesting fact about Anti-Flag. However, I want to wait until we're done talking about the album before I bring it up, just because I don't want to color anything, and this is not something that I knew again until just yesterday. So let's revisit that in a little bit here.
Okay.
So I guess I want to know, why do you think, before you start telling me about what you thought about the album, why do you think that I chose this for you to listen to specifically?
I'm not sure. I actually really don't know. I know we've never really talked about punk music together. I don't think we have anyway. So I'm not sure you would know my taste in that regard. Regardless, though, I just think maybe that that I have an appreciation for 90s and 2000s rock music in general. That's kind of my sweet spot. So outside of something like new metal, which is not really my thing, or, a couple other things, like I don't really get into like hard ass metal or anything like that. So, I can though, and I can appreciate those things, but I think Anti-Flags for Blood and Empire here, I feel like you chose this for me just because it's like a nice little snapshot of 2006. Because like to me, this is like an incredibly 2006 record, not just like in lyrics and politics and stuff, but just like, look at that record cover, man. That is like, I don't think this could have came out at any other time. Like it is that is in the 2000s, baby. Like, not in a bad way. It just looks how it looks now,
Actually, I remember when I was a youngin' and this album came out. I remember I had friends the friends that I first heard this album from, they bought it and it came with the sleeve and it had like so it's got like these five like AK-47 looking guns in the shape of a star on top. And these friends were in a band in high school. And so you would like punch out these guns and then like spray paint the like logo that was on this like sleeve of the album, and they did that on their guitar cases, or at least one of them did. So
wow,
it actually like got use as a stencil, which is kind of neat.
Do you know if this is their highest selling record? Is this like their most popular record, or
actually? So when I was looking at the one that came right before it, which was on Fat Wreck Records, which is Fat Mike from NoFX.
Oh, Fat Wreck
so like
Chords or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
Fat Wreck Chords.
I've seen that label. Yeah,
yeah. So that was right before they went to RCA, and that one charted slightly higher than this one, but this one was not too far off from it, and second highest.
Okay.
So, all right. So I'm gonna let you in on a secret why I picked it. This one was a crapshoot because, like you said, I don't think we've ever talked about punk. I don't think I've ever really heard about you listening to punk. I fuck around with punk a little bit. It's not a go-to genre for me, but this is hands down my favorite punk album, and I think it's uniquely positioned to be accessible. But I think it also like squarely fits into what, like I think what people would consider quote unquote real punk music. And that, I mean, like, have you ever heard like, like the punk kids, respond when somebody like calls The Offspring punk? Right. Like that's a fucking super taboo thing.
Yeah, I know how that goes. Yeah.
But I think this is like squarely like traditional punk in that era. I found this album to be like quite varied and dynamic throughout. It doesn't have like one, it doesn't have like a consistent tempo. It doesn't have like a super consistent sound. And I think it was just accessible because of, how quickly like I latched onto it. And you know what? Another big thing is just when you and Evan did the episode a couple of years ago about protest music, obviously that's a strong element in punk music. And it's very much front and center here. So this, again, come out in 2006. And so like a large central theme is the war on terror. And I think if we look at like the protest music genre, if you can call it that, like the war on terror was a golden age for that music, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, like, I was thinking like, cause like none of the bands I was listening to was doing that type of shit. Really. I mean, like it was all the old guard is what I was saying in that episode. Like REM put out Around the Sun in 2004, and they've always been kind of like politically minded. Not like all their albums are super political or anything, but through most of the 90s, they didn't really do that stuff. 2004 rolls around, there's some jabs in there. You know what I mean? It's their first album post 9/11, etc. Like the whole bit, right? So it's it always seemed like the guys from the 70s or 80s were doing that shit. Neil Young. Right. So like I knew who Anti-Flag was, but it was not music I listened to. So I was not aware of this record really at all.
Yeah. I mean, even when you guys talked about the Dixie Chicks, when you talked about protest music, right? You've got like country superstars that are getting in on, and that's obviously for the people that often listen to country, right? That's that's an even bigger statement a bigger statement than a punk band doing 100%, it, I guess. We'll put it that way.
Yep.
So, all right. I want to know, what did you think about this?
Well, okay, let me just start here, just so there's no suspense. I liked it. I did like For Blood and Empire. Okay, I did enjoy listening to this. So, but here was a potential couple of hurdles for me. Okay, I've never largely been into punk. So, like, I've never hated it or anything, and I like a lot of stuff that it inspired. Like, there's other genres, like, I'm sure you heard of, like, post-punk, of, like, stuff like Joy Division, or, stuff from the very early 80s, or even, obviously, there's, like, pop punk. There's, like, Blink-182, and I guess Offspring is pop punk, I guess, if you want to put them there. But, like, punk for punk's sake has never, like, really been what's up for me. Right. I guess I like some of the, like, really old, like, I'm talking like late 70s or like early 80s kind of punk sometimes. Right. I know The Clash is like kind of a goofy, like they did a lot of stuff that wasn't just punk, but I like that stuff. Right. But then I had friends in the 90s, of course, in middle school and high school, who were really into, like, NoFX or Pennywise, and I just did not like that stuff at all. Like that kind of punk is just not for me, right? Yeah. But then, of course, then you get to, like, there's, like, again, more pop punk, like Green Day or whatever. I'm cool with that, right? So I'm kind of all over the map with this. But yeah, Anti-Flag is, like, kind of very traditional punk, and that's new to me. That's not something I really listen to. Here's another potential hurdle for me, or rather the other one. And you know this about me already, because we talked about it on Fine Time. I do not like preachy music. I don't. Like, music with a message is fine, but if it's something that feels like it's constantly shouting at me, like, this is the thing we're talking about, that can wear thin on me pretty fast. That's why I don't really listen to stuff like Rage Against the Machine or, like, Public Enemy and shit like that. I appreciate it. I like a song or two, but I can't just, like, sit down and listen to those albums. That's just not going to be something I'm going to do. And
I gotta break the suspense. Did you find this too preachy? I would say at times, I bet you did.
I wouldn't say too preachy. Did I feel like it was a little, I, like, kind of rolled, it's like, okay, come on, right? A couple times? Yes. But no, overall, I did not find it that way, because otherwise this album would have been pretty repellent to me.
Right.
So no, overall, no, I did not feel that way. It didn't go too far for me. But yeah, like, I just can't, even if I agree with the message, right? And I often do with music like this, not that it's exactly my politics, but, like, I get it, right? If it's the bludgeoning me with a lecture, which again, a couple times I did feel that way about For Blood and Empire, but for the most part, I didn't. And, I did just, like, a little bit of research. I didn't run a really researched band before I did this. I just wanted to, like, listen to the album. I did do a little research, and I found out they're all vegan and they're big PETA advocates and shit like that. And I'm like, oh man, this sounds like it's going to be exhausting.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then,
and I get that. Cause I think even more so than music, like video games, I feel we talked about Celeste, right? And it's like, it's very, like, mental health is important. And I was like, I get that, but I don't need to be fucking beat over the head with it. I empathize with what you're saying about that. I get it. I don't need it rammed down my throat.
Right. Well, actually, you know what? I'll save that for later. I'll ask you that later once I tell you more about what I thought about the record. But yeah, and then, like, another first impression I had was, like, I was just looking up and down the track list, and there's, like, State Funeral and Cities Burn, War Sucks, Let's Party, the WTO Kills Farmers, and I'm like, oh man, what am I about to listen to?
Right.
But it's like, okay, open mind. I'm not gonna, it's fine. And then, but yeah, I sat down and listened to it, and I was like, yeah, this is a pretty good record. It is. I don't know if well, I guess I'll just talk about the album structure overall, I guess, at this point. One thing I often don't care for in punk music, which is why the 90s stuff bothered me, like the NoFX and shit, is the production. I think those albums sound like booty butt cheeks. There's like there's like some bands from that time I think sound good, like Rancid. I think Rancid always had like pretty good production values, you know? Or of course Blink 182, but that's kind of a different thing than what we're talking about. How do you feel about Rancid, by the way, just randomly? Are you like a Rancid person? Or
I mean,
like,
yeah, again, you know, if like to hear the hits, that's fine. Again, I'm not like punk is not my go-to thing.
okay.
Right? So I've never like owned a Rancid album.
Okay. Neither have
you know,
I.
when I was in high school, I hung out with kids that were like really, really into punk, and I think you know, because I my go-to metal or my go-to genre is metal. There's just a lot of like crossover, I think, between the cultures and the music or whatever. So it's always been within reach, but it's never been my go-to thing. So I don't have like a real strong Rancid opinion.
Okay, yeah. Neither do I. Like I said, I just know a lot because friends would play it and shit. And I know, like I said, they had some radio hits, of course, at the time. You know, San Diego skate culture. I mean, like it was a lot, right? Like I heard a lot of Rancid. But yeah, the production sometimes on punk music just does not do it for me. It's very center channel and bludgeoning sometimes, which I guess is just the genre as a whole. That's kind of what it's supposed to sound like, but it doesn't have the dynamics for me that I typically like, so it just doesn't really catch my ear. With all that said, For Blood and Empire does suffer from this a little bit for me. Just a little. I think the first half of the record feels a bit coming at you fast. Right? Because, like, let me look at the track listing here. Yeah. You kick off with I Tell You But and the Press Corpse. I love that corpse core. Haha. And, like, those are really hitting you, right? By the way, I love that this album starts with a song that's 2 minutes. I feel like every album should do that. I really appreciated that. You know, I get in there and get out. Right. But then by the time you get to like the Project for a New American Century, pretty good song. I really like that one. And then Hymn for the Dead, a song I like probably a little less. By that point, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling a little like someone's hammering my head, right? But like, it wasn't too bad. I wasn't just like, oh man, this is going to go on forever. But yeah, I think it's a pretty good sounding record, I think, you know? And it sounds very 2006. I know that's kind of the theme of this so far, but like, just like, let me ask you this. Do you feel like because it is 2006, the production style of this album where you have like the backup vocals or like the call and response, right, of punk that's like part of it or like whatever, they're definitely in that like 2000s kind of like emo vocal space a little bit.
Oh, interesting.
I know to a lot of people, emo's a bad word, and I don't really like emo either. But like, it kind of sounds like that to me because of the time, I think.
Yeah, I've definitely never thought of it in that. I think even when we talk about the like call and response thing, I probably associate that more with like, you know, like a punk dynamic than I would, you know, a product of the time.
Yeah, it's just the way, I mean, yes, it is a punk thing, but the way it sounds on this particular album is very like, again, because of the way it's produced, is just kind of emo-ish to me. Again, that's not a bad word to me, so I think it might be to other people, but it's fine. You know, I just think it's interesting. It just makes it sound even more 2006 as fuck, in my opinion. But yeah, that first half of the record, pretty good. But then comes This Is the End for You, My Friend, which is by far and away the absolute best song on this record. And it's not even fucking close. Like, wow. I looked on Tidal to see what their most listened to songs were, and this was number 2. And I see why. Like, no joke. Like, absolute banger. This song is fucking great. It's the only song on here with like a bass line that matters to me, you know, and we have some nice, like, kind of angular riffs and like some just really excellent guitar work in general. I think up until that point in the record, I wasn't really appreciating them, like the musicianship of it. Right. I think, but then when we got there and it kind of opens up, there's a lot more space now. And I'm like, oh, okay. I get it. And after like the first 5 songs felt a bit bludgeoning, I definitely wasn't expecting to hear anything like that. Like, was this on the radio or something up there or something? I feel like this probably, if they ever were to have a hit song, this would be it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they had a few, and I don't know off the top of my head. They had a few songs that were on video games. I know that.
Okay. Okay.
And like around this time period, I don't think that I ever heard them on the radio.
Okay, I definitely have never heard this song before either. It just sounds like such a sure shot single that, like, you know, it just sounds like it'd be, again, I'm sure on Spotify it's the same. But yeah, it's like their second most listened to song. Absolutely see why. Banger. Banger alert, everybody. We should have a banger alert sound effect for this show, I feel like. I don't know what that would be. Maybe I can find something when I edit this. Banger alert.
Oh, that's a great sound effect.
Thank you.
I just heard it.
But yeah, maybe this might be a good time to ask you, what's your favorite song on this record? Is it this? Is it something else?
My favorite song is Emigre. Track 3, which actually I've got this pulled up. That one's definitely one of the lowest listens. And I don't know, it's just got this, like it's a little bit of a not slow song for the album, but it's got kind of like a rhythmic chug.
Yes.
That's got a, like a cerebral quality to it that I think I appreciate.
Yeah, it's good. I don't think any song in here is bad. I think that's like very important. I wasn't just like through my repeated listens of it, I wasn't like, oh, I don't want to hear that. Yeah, it's skipping any, you know, like I definitely didn't feel that way about For Blood and Empire. So it is definitely a good record in the fact that like I don't want to skip anything. I want to listen to it all the way through.
Good.
So there is that. If there is any point where the constant messaging, and you know me, I'm not a lyrics guy either. That's probably important to note here. I feel like anyone who's heard us talk about music already knows that, but like, I don't really like absorb lyrics that way. They don't have to quote unquote mean anything to me. They don't have to be meaningful to me. You know, they can just be background fluff and that's fine. But with bands like this, they really want you to hear what they're saying, you know? So it's like, it's really front and center. And if there's any like messaging that did get on my nerves at some point, it was definitely some songs like $1 trillion.
See, that was the one I wanted to ask the most about because it's definitely a very like standout song on the album, whether you like it or you don't. It's pretty unique for the listen.
I like the song. I think I just sort of reflexively recoil at anything that sort of criticizes commercialism or like material things. I just always think that's really hypocritical at best and honestly kind of trite. You know, I don't think bands, again, I'm not saying every band is like a billionaire and they're all super successful or anything. I'm sure Anti-Flag did perfectly fine for themselves or whatever. But like, I don't know, man. I just always feel like that feels shitty to listen to in music, in my opinion. It always just like, I'm making the song, but you're stupid for listening to it. It always is always what it feels like to me. And it's just like, come on. Again, maybe that's just my weird take on it. But when any song is like that, about criticizing that kind of stuff, it always makes me feel a little
Right. It's interesting even listening to you talk about it in that context, because I heard this, you know, so many times when I was so young, because I was, you know, 16, 17 when I was like starting to get really into this. Right.
Okay.
And so at the time, and I mean, like full transparency, I was a lot younger. So I'm like, oh, these guys have fucking got something to say. Right. And you know, I was just at like a way different point than I am right now in my life, obviously. But since then, I've heard it so many times that when I'm listening to it, like I'm not listening to $1 trillion like being like, oh, this song is about commercialism in the forefront of my mind, because I've just heard it so many fucking times that it's just like, that's the song, right? So it's you know, I don't even. It's weird for me to hear you talk about it in the context of like taking the lyrics or what they're saying at face value, because I almost have an inability to do that anymore.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Because I've been doing a show called The Silent Discographer with a couple of friends, and we've been going through the REM discography. And in 1992, Automatic for the People, there's a song on that album called Ignoreland. It is a absolute savage attack on Republicans. Absolutely. Like, just absolutely. And this album came out before the 1992 election, before Clinton got elected. So it was still like 12 fucking years of Republican presidents, like 2 Reagans and 1 George Sr., right? So it's just like, that's what that song was about. It's this fed up blast of just ranting about them, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I heard that song, I first heard that song when I was like 17. I got that album like later in the 90s. So I was like 16, 17. It absolutely didn't really register with me that way. It's not that I didn't know what it was about, because of course I did, right? Obviously I knew enough about politics at that point to understand. It just never hit me as like, ooh, they're really saying that? You know, it never like registered as a message. So I understand what you mean about $1 trillion, because it, like, if you're not the right age, it may not register that way with you.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, again, I think exactly what you said. I knew what it was saying, right? And it was, but it just, I think I've learned less what it's saying as I've got older, because it's just, you know, it's just, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think of it like a big bell curve, where if you listen to this when you were, 5, you'd be like, oh, this song is just about having $1 trillion, you know, and then as you get older, you're going to understand that they're trying to say something. But then as I have got even older yet, you know, and I've just heard it so many times that I'm like back to my 5-year-old, cognizance of listening to it.
I completely understand that, right? Because like some songs can be like that, or there's other songs, in my case, like I said, I'm such a shitty lyrics listener, where it's like, I didn't realize sometimes what songs were about until like much later in life, where I actually sat down and either read the lyrics while listening on Tidal or something. It's like, oh, okay, I get it, right? Where I just never thought about it. Maybe this might be a good time to ask you this, because like, how much do you personally need to like agree with the viewpoints of something to like get into it? Because like I said, these guys are like big PETA people. I personally think PETA is a bullshit organization. And like, I also, to a degree, think militant, preachy veganism has other issues, like being largely anti-indigenous in some ways.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like so I feel that way, but that doesn't mean that like, oh, I don't agree with this, I'm turning it off or something like that. If they had like a song called like Meat is Murder or some shit like that, like I'm not gonna like, that's not the way I interact with music enough where that needs to be part of my experience. So how do you feel about that? If they were saying a bunch of stuff that you didn't really agree with, would you be like, I don't know?
I mean, largely I feel the same way. Yeah, definitely. If it's stuff that I just like, oh, I don't really agree with that. I'm not, we've talked before about like separating the art from the artist. And I think this is kind of the same thing. Like, if I'm listening to music, I'm predominantly here for the music, and there's going to be exceptions to that. There's things that, there's certain topics that if it was like super pro this, I'm going to be like, I can't just like ignore and forget that, because it's going to just be such an automatic turn off that even if it's really, really good, good sonically, it's just going to be a non-starter, because it's hard to like shut that out. But yeah, I think in the same, PETA is a great example, right? I feel the same as you, but I'm not, hearing somebody, like make that part of the message is not going to be something that is even really going to register with me that much, to be completely honest.
Okay.
And I think going again, it's hard for me to like talk about this without, talking about being a teenager. And this is a whole entirely other discussion. But when I was that age and just where I grew up, there were so many, like, I've thought about this a lot outside of the context of music. There were so many things like going on in the world that, people were talking about and were hot button topics at the time that, I was either like vaguely aware of as a concept or not even to that degree. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really have a lot of context in a lot of those, hot button topics at the time to really even have an opinion that much.
Okay. I get that. And I understand. I kind of felt, judging by how you feel about like other stuff that we've talked about this with like video games or whatever, like, should you play Hogwarts Legacy or should you, like, I understand your feelings on that kind of stuff too. So like, I kind of figured you feel that way about music as well, or just in life in general. So like, yeah, that's, that's consistent with what I thought you might say. But yeah, I feel like after This Is the End for You, My Friend, I feel like the album lightens up considerably. Do you feel that way? I feel like the second half has a lot more different, like, you start getting some like different textures. Obviously, like $1 Trillion has like a acoustic guitar, based, and it's like you get some like varying, like a lot of different more tempos, I think. It gives me the variety that I need to like quote unquote complete a record in my mind. Because if it all sounded like the first half, I think it would be like too much for me.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think I do largely agree with you. So that the last track, Depleted Uranium is a War Crime, like that song is very fucking on the nose. And I mean, there's like audio clips inserted into it. It's very like repetitive, when they say that they're like over and over saying Depleted Uranium is a War Crime. It's not just the title of the song. Yeah. And so, I mean, it probably up to that point. But then it's like, and I mean, even some of the like, they have like news audio clips or whatever inserted in there, and it's like pretty heavy shit. So I think that kind of like brings that, maybe bringing it to a lighter tone, to a screeching halt right before you're done.
Yeah, it sure does. It makes sure that you don't forget on the way out. And I thought that was like kind of expertly done. I love the way that song is put together, honestly. It's not like one of my favorites on the record, but I absolutely appreciate it. It's something that feels more, well, I understand, obviously, as you said, they were formed in the late 80s. So it's kind of feels like a more 90s touch to have that sort of like, we're putting the real news in the song or something like that, or have like clips. Because like, I feel like as we get into the 2000s, especially later in the 2000s, we stopped kind of doing that kind of stuff. But, whatever, things change. But I like that, felt like a nice old school touch. It felt like something I would hear on like I'm a big KMFDM person, that felt like something that you would hear on one of their records or something.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know if I have any other particular things to say about it. I liked it. I really enjoyed listening to something well out of my purview, and it was great. I think For Blood and Empire is a really good record. Is this going to be something I sit down with all the time and listen to? No, I don't really listen to punk music like that. I probably never will. But when I want something like this, I will reach back for this again, or maybe explore their other records.
Yeah, good. I'm glad, because actually, again, out of the two albums that I picked for you, this is the one that I was prepared to come in and you to be like, look, okay, you had a good intent behind this, and I don't want to be a dick about it, but like, I really fucking didn't like this at all, and I just didn't know. And I mean, that would have been fine. I wouldn't have been personally offended by that, but if this wasn't like actively offensive to you and you found something to get out of it, I think that's great. I don't know, too, when not when punk isn't a big genre for me, this record has also been like a very predominant record like my entire adult life. This is something that I like regularly go back and listen to, so I think I'm just kind of happy to share it as well, because I feel like there's like a part of my like musical DNA that is embodied by a part of this record.
Okay. I definitely feel about the album you're about to talk about now the same way. So if you don't have any other questions for me, we can move on to that, unless you had any other specific album things you wanted to know.
One more question about this. Is this something that you would have expected me to like?
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
This sound, I mean, yeah, this when I got it right away while you're into this, honestly. So, and I feel like I don't even have to ask you about what we're about to talk about, because that question rather, because yes, of course, that is. I mean, if there's anything that's part of my soul, it's that. But let's take a short break and then we'll get to that record.
Fine time. Broadcasting worldwide.
All right, Kevin. The album I chose for you this session was The Human League's Dare. And Dare was released in October 1981 in the UK and came over here to the United States and other countries in mid-1982. Kevin, do you remember? I mean, obviously you don't. God, isn't it crazy?
Do I remember 1982?
Yeah, do you remember 19... I was born in 1982. How do you not remember? No, I was going to say, like, I feel like up through the 90s, there was times where, like, albums still wouldn't come out in all regions at the same time. Like, as you know, I was a big Our Lady Peace person, and those would come out in Canada like 3 to 6 months before they would get to us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I remember like often having to wait for stuff like that, even like in like 1999 and 2000 and shit. Right. So like, yeah, I feel like. Yeah,
I obviously remember that being a thing with video games, but I mean, to be honest, in the 90s, you know, because I was once 2000 hit, I was 11. And so even up to that, there was not like albums I was anticipating coming out. I had a few albums or cassette tapes, but it was more like you would go into the hardware store and they'd have the little like plastic display with the CDs and tapes, and you would just like see what's there and what you would maybe like line up with what you'd heard on the radio. So I didn't know what was coming out when.
Yeah, it was a time then. But yeah, I feel like by the 2000s, and especially by like digital distribution stuff, records started coming out everywhere at the same time. But yeah, the Human League, Dare. This is their third album, and Dare is considered an absolute synth pop masterpiece by just about everybody. For a lot of people, it's considered the best synth pop record of all time. And quite frankly, I agree. It's one of my favorite albums ever. And the genre that would become the 80s, I really do think it's the best one. Why do you think I chose this for you to listen to?
Okay, I think I've got a couple of reasons.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you are aware that my musical knowledge is pretty limited to the 90s and forward. And even outside of that, my musical knowledge is, I definitely do not have the breadth of knowledge that you do, like genre-wise.
Okay.
You know, I hear you talk about, you and Evan do music shows. There's so many things that can like come out that you guys weren't planning on talking about, and you guys are both, you know, prepared to talk about it regardless. And I don't have that. Mm-hmm. Especially not pre-90s. And I think you thought that this was maybe a good entry to like push those limits back a little bit.
Okay.
And I think that there is kind of an industrial element to this that I think you thought maybe I would like, which I was not expecting. You know, even when you say synth pop, like I have a different musical style in my head than what the bulk of this album is. Don't You Want Me is the only Human League song I would have been able to like list before we talked about this. Okay. Definitely, there's a few more that I could recognize. But that, you know, if I think of Human League, that's the like one song that everybody knows. Mm-hmm. And so, when I don't want to jump too far ahead, but when I first listened to this, it was really hard not to just like hear this as so 80s. But then the more I listened to it, I was hearing elements that, I feel would be about to influence like bands like Nine Inch Nails. Yes. You know, which I was not expecting at all. And I think you probably like that element thought that, you know, that's going to be what hooks me.
Well, yeah, I think you kind of nailed it in a sense. So, like, I guess this bears some explanation. So, the term new wave, right? We've all heard it. This sort of, for a long time, this sort of meant two different things, depending on whether you're from the US or the UK, right? Because the US, new wave meant like Talking Heads or the Cars or like Devo, right? Like that was new wave. In the UK, it was like the synth pop shit. It was like Gary Newman or Depeche Mode or the Human League. Like that, they were so far ahead of us on like the synthesizer stuff, you know? That's why when you look at like 80s pop, all of it's from over there. Like pretty much. Like we have the big stars like Madonna and Michael Jackson and shit. But like if you think about like the bulk of like 80s pop music, especially like the first half, it's all from the fucking UK, man. And it's for a reason. They were just so far ahead of us on that shit. So at some point, these two ideas, like the rock music, like Talking Heads, the synth pop, like Depeche Mode, these two separate ideas would become one thing on the spiritual sexual level, you know? But I wanted you to hear a synth pop record before that happened. That's why I chose this album from 1981, where this music was still very much in its infancy. Like, this is incredibly rudimentary. Like, you can tell. Like, think about this versus, like, something later in the 80s, like Paula Abdul or some shit where everything's so slick and so produced. Like, we understand what we're doing with like drum machines and synthesizers. We didn't really know that in 1981. Like, so this was very pioneering stuff, I think. And like you said, I think that's where the industrialness comes in, because I don't know how much you know about Depeche Mode. Their like first 3 records are also fairly industrial in this manner as well. So, I mean, I think their 3 albums called Construction Time Again. So, I mean, it's, you know, like it's, they're leaning into it, you know, but yeah.
And do you think that was that was kind of like lost as the 80s went on?
Yeah, I think those touches sort of disappeared, but then they were brought back by the actual like genre industrial.
Right.
You know, like I said, that's why I'm such a big KMFDM person, because you can tell they're obviously inspired by shit like this, even though KMFDM doesn't sound like Human League. You know, you hear where you got, and you said 9 Inch Nails. What 9 Inch Nails' first album was like, when was Pretty Hate Machine? 1989, 1990? You know, it was not too far. It's not too far from this, you know, so I get it. Point is, yeah, that's what I thought you might appreciate, and it sounds like you did.
Yeah. Do you want me to get into the meat and potatoes?
Yeah, I think I was gonna say like why I love this album, but like I think everyone I don't even think I have to say anything really. Like, yeah, I think
your
you should just go
is
for
on
it.
your sleeve.
Yeah, I think you should just go for it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was really expecting this to be something totally different than what it is. I did not expect that before I listened to this, that there was going to be a reference to 9 Inch Nails made. And to be honest, after the first time I listened to it, I was not that into it. I think because it subverted what I was expecting so much.
What did you think it was going to sound like?
I thought it was going to be more. I thought it was going to be more upbeat.
Okay.
Not that it doesn't have its upbeat moments, but there is a good chunk of this album that is quite somber in a way, I think. And that I was not expecting. And again, I don't, you know, when I think of like 80s music in general, I'm thinking of like the like Grand Theft Auto Vice City soundtrack, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, I'm going to conflate, you know, I'm going to like associate Human League with like Flock of Seagulls, right? This is all kind of like, so I think I was expecting it to be a little bit like brighter and neon, if that makes sense.
Right. Cause like a few like years after this, we would get stuff like A Flock of Seagulls or like whatever, what people consider the 80s. You know what I mean? So again, that's why I purposefully chose something that wasn't like that. I chose something very early 80s.
Right. Yeah. But this definitely still sounds very 80s. And so I think it took a listen or two for me to get beyond like just hearing that 80s. You know, and without that context of like, you know, having a driver's knowledge of music throughout the 80s, it was hard for me to like differentiate what was sounding different, or maybe like what I wasn't expecting. And then the more I listened to it, I've probably listened to this since the first time, maybe like 6 or 7 times all the way through.
Okay.
And I think not only from like the first and second to third and fourth, but like every time I like made a point to sit down and actively listen to it, you know, because there was a couple times is I'm cleaning the house. And so I'm just like listening to it while I'm doing something. But especially the times when I like made a point of sitting down and really paying attention, I kept finding more and more complexity than I initially heard there. And I think there is a lot of complexity there, like not like a lot of complexity for music in the 80s, like a lot of complexity for music, or especially for like pop music, you know, and I like that. I like that kind of like depressing tone that it often hits.
It sounds very, I think like people who don't like synthesizer music say it sounds like cold or inhuman, but to me that's not a detriment. I think that's like the point of the music. It does sound a bit like detached. It sounds a bit cold. It sounds a bit, I don't know if I want to say depressing, but definitely, like you said, somber. I mean, it's that typical English kind of like, rainy gray skies, kind of, like the weather over there. It just sounds like that,
Right. Well, there were times, not even outside of like the synth music, there were a number of times when I felt like not as much the lyrics, but the vocal delivery is like meant to sound kind of oppressive.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because, like, I mean, you know the song I Am the Law, right? Which is like there's no drum track. And it sounds he's like right on top of you. You're lucky I care for fools like you. Like he's like almost shouting. And he's not shouting it at you, but it's you're right. It is oppressive, but not just a song like that with that kind of theming. It just does sound oppressive in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, so maybe I'll go through because I've got some specific songs that I wanted to hit on. The opening track, The Things Dreams Are Made Of, that one instantly feels kind of uncomfortable, but it's got this dynamic where lyrically it's positive. Acoustically, it's got this kind of like strange dissonant sound. And so those, but it's not like those positive lyricism and sounds are at conflict with each other. It kind of goes, it flows like it's meant to.
Right.
Do or Die, I thought was a very standout track. It's very upbeat. This one almost I thought has like kind of a 90s sound to it.
You're not far away, Yeah. Obviously the 90s don't use these kind of instruments, but like, yeah, you're not far off.
It maybe made me think of like music that you would hear on like Darkwing Duck or something like that in a way, right?
I understand what you mean. No, I totally get it. I get it.
Yeah,
and I know again, some people would think that's like, oh, that sounds like shit. No, I totally understand what you mean.
Yeah, and that's not a criticism at all. It's got kind of like these bouncy undertones, like it's almost like it's got like a Caribbean music vibe or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right.
Sort of like
there's like
yeah.
Yeah,
almost I don't know. Almost like they're using. I mean, they're not using steel drums, but if they did, it would make sense, right?
Yeah.
Like
well, there's those like long, like bamboo instruments that you scrape across. Like, there's some of that going on, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's and so I think the two that's between like talking about the things dreams are made of and sounding like uncomfortable and dissonant to like talking about something like that. There's a lot of dynamicism that's going, from track to track. You talked about I Am the Law, and that was definitely a standout as well. So right before that, Get Carter is this like 1 minute instrumental like interlude that's very that like is meant to like set that song up. And it's very foreboding. It's got like this depressing post-apocalyptic type thing. We talked about 9 Inch Nails, right? Year Zero. That's kind of like a concept album of like oppressive government type shit. Mm-hmm. And this has like, that like very much slots into that kind of idea.
100%.
Yeah. Love Action. Which is the track 9, the second last one. That one, I think, out of any of these, like most embodies the 80s sound. And I was there for that. It's very bouncy. I don't think that this is something that would have been in okay, so was this something that was in contention to be a single? Was this a big song?
This was a big song in the UK. It was
hey?
Like a top 10 hit in the UK, yeah.
I think, going back to when I was talking about complexity, I think this song is simpler than most of the other songs on the album. But it's maybe like the funnest song on the album.
Yeah. It has like cause like even something like Open Your Heart, which again sounds like positive, it still has that like nervous vibe of the things dreams are made of. Love Action does sound kind of pure, doesn't it?
Yeah. I remember thinking, listening to this about like, the movie Vacation, like the original Vacation, like the soundtrack for that. Like this would have fit in to the soundtrack for Vacation, I think.
I think so. You're right, yeah. And when was Vacation? 1980? It was probably around this time, right? It was
probably maybe a little bit later than this, I would think. Do you think would it be? Okay,
maybe 83. I don't know. Maybe 83. But yeah, It would be around this time when like Human League was hot. But yeah, this was a big hit there. I love this song. Geez, I mean, I love every song on here. Obviously, you don't need to tell me that. Oh, okay. Well, is this your favorite song on the record? Do you have or is it?
You know what?
I
I think "I Am the Law" was my favorite song on the record.
Okay.
Just because it's got such a it's like a real like mission statement for the album. It seems like it's meant to like sit in the center of the album to really like be its own distinct thing.
Mm-hmm. You know, what's also really, I think what's really interesting about like lyrically, I think he chooses the right words. Like my favorite song in here is Seconds. Seconds is one of my favorite songs ever. I will never get tired of the soundscape of that song. And obviously Seconds is about someone killing somebody. And I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, is this about like JFK? Like, what are we talking about here? Right? Like the shot that was heard around the world. What are we talking about? Like, but it's not really about anything at all. It just sounds grandiose because the music sounds grandiose. To me, I think Seconds is the most like 80s ass, like 80s songs. You have all like what I like to call the dragon swoops of like synthesizers going through it, going literally, like literally like sound. It's like, oh my God, this sounds like, what the fuck is this? You know, it's just some of the coolest sounds I've ever heard. But that's like my favorite because that's one of my favorite songs ever. But obviously every song in here is a winner. I would not have expected "I'm the Law" to be your favorite song. I'll put it that way. I would have thought maybe you would have said something else. Right. Something a little more bright, like a "Open Your Heart" or like even a "Love Action" or something like that. I thought maybe would be more your thing. Well, I guess
I mean, "Love Action" maybe would be second because again, like you said, it feels a lot more pure. It's very 80s. "Love Action" I think was what I was expecting out of this album before I listened to it.
Right, and then you have like "Don't You Want Me" at the very end, which go ahead, say it.
I mean, it's almost hard to even like listen to this in context of this album because of course I've heard this many times, and it, like this embodies of what I think of an 80s song. I was not expecting this to be an album closer. I think it works. It's like a very interesting choice. I have a hard time even thinking of any other albums where like the last song on the album was, far and away the biggest song.
You don't hear that very often.
No,
you really don't. Yeah. I feel I can't remember where I read this. I think he did it on purpose. He put it at the back on purpose because, and I know this to be true, Phil Oakey, the lead singer and songwriter, he didn't like it at first. He thought it was too slick.
Oh.
He thought it was too like, because the rest of the record doesn't really sound like that, right? So he was kind of like, we're doing this very like thing, and then we have this like super ultra slick pop song at the end, right? And obviously it's not that, I guess he didn't like not want it to be there, but he stuck it at the end on purpose, just because it's like, okay, we're gonna have all the weird shit up front. Did
he kind of hate that it blew up so much?
I don't think that. I don't think he hate that it got like super popular. It's just that he didn't like how produced and like how slick it was compared to the rest of the record.
Right. I think it again, I'm not at all that it doesn't fit, but it's not consistent with like the artistic vision of the rest of the album. I don't feel. It like feels like an outlier.
Yeah, because how sometimes, I mean, I think that's why a lot of bands will put their hit single from, their lead single from the record up front, right? Because it's like, here's the thing you heard already. Here's the thing that may not fit with the rest of what we're doing here, but here's our single. Okay, here's the rest of the record. He just did it in the opposite fashion, It's just great. Well, like "Love Action" is also like a big hit, so maybe he just wanted the hits at the end. I don't know, man. He's a weirdo. I think "Open Your Heart" was also like a hit in the UK, from what I understand.
Oh, okay.
Those are like the three singles.
Did "Love Action" get big stateside? I don't know that I'm maybe I have heard that song before. It's not something I heard and I was like, oh, I like instantly recognize this.
I have never heard "Love Action" until I bought this record in the mid 2000s. So I had never heard it before.
Okay.
The songs I knew were, of course, "Don't You Want Me" and their single after this record, "Keep Feeling Fascination." I heard that song a million times.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, Keep
I mean,
Feeling
I feel
Fascination
like that
was a
song was
smash.
used on like commercials in the 90s.
Oh
a
yeah,
lot.
that's like that might be as known as Don't You Want Me. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I think I might be wrong about this. Did you guys have fashion TV in the 90s, or was that a Canada thing?
Man, it may be was it like like entertainment?
No, it was like literally like just fucking like a lot of like fucking ladies walking down the runway, and like it would like come on.
I would watch that channel a lot. No, I don't think I don't think we had that.
I think I was like too little to even appreciate what was going on when that was around.
No, I don't think we had that.
That was my dad accidentally leaving it on that channel. But I think
sure.
Fascination might have been the theme for fashion TV. I might be wrong about that.
I feel like I saw a Vice City commercial back in the day, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, that had Keep Feeling Fascination, the commercial. I feel like they used it.
Okay,
because I remember
dun, dun, dun. Is that the same song?
That's Eye of the Tiger.
No, it's not Eye of the Tiger that I know what you're saying, but it's not. I gotta find the fucking song okay. Oh, I don't want to do it again because you accused me of sounding like Eye of the Tiger, which I understand. But I know Eye of the Tiger, and this song is not Eye of the Tiger.
Okay, that's what it sounded like to me. Anyway, no, I think Keep Feeling Fascination really. That song is from 1983, so like it's a couple years. That's what's funny about this time period. You just go forward just a couple years, and the 80s sounds like the 80s. Everyone's doing this, and everyone has the shit down. Just a couple years before, though, they pioneered. And well, here's the thing: you can understand why this is considered like one of the greatest of all time, right? By a lot of people. This album is really considered, as far as this genre of music goes, like the Bible, essentially.
Yeah, well, I do think there's, and I mean, again, it's not, I'm sure there's plenty of other like synth pop 80s albums that like have this kind of complexity. But when I don't know of it, right? I think there's more complexity here than what I would think of this genre of music from this time period.
I might, I hate to blow our cover. I might have to give you like a Depeche Mode record or something. Then I think you'll find something in that. I think if you really like this and you're like kind of synth curious now, I think you will find a lot of complexity in that stuff too.
Right.
To some degree.
Now Depeche Mode though leans a little bit more like early techno though too. Am I right in thinking that?
Not really. Like they definitely don't sound like Human League, but they're definitely a lot like their first album was like very intentionally super poppy because like I think like their first couple albums they were considered like teen idols and shit. You know what I mean? Okay. Like they were like very that kind of music. But very soon after that, they really started doing like very interesting, very like weird lyrics about S&M and like they started getting very weird very quickly, whereas like Human League started weird and got a bit slicker as time goes on.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, they sort of had opposite trajectories. But yeah, I think you would find obviously some crossover, but something to like there. But anyway, yeah, I don't have enough good things to say about Dare. It's one of my, if I were making a top 10, Kevin, my favorite albums of all time, this would probably be in there. It's really
good.
Yeah, it's really up there for me. So
yeah, I think this is definitely, again, this is something that I would revisit. I think I would have to be in a mood to listen to this. Like it's got its place.
It's moody.
Yeah. I can see going back to this when the mood strikes. This isn't something I think I would put on like just. You know what? Because the first time I listened to this, I was cleaning the house and I just like put it on to like listen to the first time. And this is not the album to listen to in that setting. I don't think.
No, definitely not. If you got like I said, if you had like, 10 more Keep Feeling Fascinations on this record, then like, sure. But like, that's not, right. Yeah. It's so funny though, that like he was weird about Don't You Want Me, but I think Fascination is fucking slicker. That song is like a factory of pop, right? Like, I don't know, maybe he just lightened up after that, but what can I say?
And where did that song land on that album?
Oh no, that was just like I think it was just like a single. It didn't like I don't think it was for a record.
Oh,
yeah, they had like
interesting.
they did like a thing in the mid I think like mid 1983 where they had like they were just releasing singles and then they just kind of collected in this EP of like 6 songs. So like Keep Feeling Fascination is on there, but like nobody really associates it with that like little collection. It's really just a non-album single.
Its own thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
God, I wish they had a whole album where they built around that sound, but that's another discussion entirely, I guess. That was fun. I think we should get out of here. I'm glad to have exchanged albums with you without having to go back to my house and tape it on my double tape deck or my CD to cassette or rip it to MP3 or something. I'm glad we can just exchange them this way.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't have to go sit in the bathroom and tear up because you like entirely ripped my selection to shreds. So that's I mean, good.
I feel like if we keep doing these, it's bound to happen. We're bound to give something that the other person hates. So it's gonna happen eventually, right? But yeah. Like we said, guys, we have other records in the pipeline for this, so we will be doing this again, whether you like it or not. I'm sorry. We're just going to have to. But until then, we'll see you next time. Check the description of this podcast. By the way, check the description if you want to hear either Anti-Flags for Blood and Empire or The Human League's Dare. We will have Spotify and Tidal links to both those albums if you want to hear them. All right, so go ahead and check that out. But until then, see you next time. Bye.
You've been listening to